Hello and welcome to episode 11, I believe, of JDUB and Friends. It's been a minute since I've done one of these again. Sorry about that. Just kind of finding guests is fun. But tonight I actually have Saigan here. Big fan of his. Watched him a lot of his Twitch, a lot of his YouTube stuff over the years. So glad to have him on. How you doing tonight, Saigan?
Doing great. Glad to be here. Yeah, you've been a member of my Discord for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. It's just been a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you were one of the first people because I remember watching some of your RPGs I was stuck on for like the longest time, and all of a sudden I was like, I need to find somebody. It was like you and HC Bailey were the only ones doing RPGs for the longest time.
Yep. Me, H.C. Bailey, and Kenshin was the third. And, like, it was just us doing Dragon Quest and a smattering of other old ones.
Yep. And I was like, what in the world? So I was like confused. I'm like, I got like nobody does any of these games, and all of a sudden now everybody does them. But Um, tonight we're actually going to talk about a couple things. The questions I'm ask you are going to kind of connect to those things we're going to talk about. So,
Mhm.
I ask questions because some of my fans may not know who you are, because they don't play
That's
video
cool.
games or whatever.
If you don't play Dragon Quest and watch a lot of Dragon Quest on YouTube, yeah, that's I'm a niche within a niche.
Yep, yep, me too. Um, so I know you are vegan or
Mhm.
partially vegan, I guess.
Ish,
Yeah.
vegan-ish.
It doesn't have to be a vegan answer, but what is your
Mhm.
favorite meal of all time?
My favorite meal of all time
Uh-huh.
is unfortunately pizza, and it's one of the things that does not replicate well
Yeah.
within the vegan food space. Can get a lot of it right.
Uh-huh.
They've done some very impressive things with meat. We found a wonderful pepperoni. It's the cheese. There's no good vegan cheese.
No.
And that's why I'm vegan-ish.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we have to have a good cheese.
Yeah, cheese makes the world go round.
Yeah.
Kind of going on that same line of questioning.
Mhm.
What's your favorite non-meat dinner?
My favorite non-meat dinner. Um, Playing favorites is pretty hard. I make a mean breakfast burrito. That's what we had for dinner tonight.
Hmm.
I made lentil soup last night, and that was way better than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been a couple of pupusas.
Oh, what
Pupusas.
what is that?
It's a Peruvian pancake. And you can get it with all sorts of stuff. You can get stuff with cheese, meat, beans. I usually prefer mine with um, onions and mushrooms. And there's different sauces that can go on it, different kinds of cabbage based. It's almost a coleslaw. I
Okay.
don't want to call it coleslaw because I know that there are slaw haters out there, and it's not the same. It's similar. It's a cabbage salad thing that goes with it. But yeah, it's Peruvian. We found it in Old Colorado City, which is nearby here. We found it during uh, the Great Plague of 2020, and they were one of the places that delivered and had vegan options. And we're like, well, let's try it. And yeah, pupusas, they're great.
Yeah, but I say might as well try something new. Yeah, I've never heard of it. I'll have to try it out and
Mhm.
check it into it.
Yeah, we're big on trying new foods, and that is also an enemy of being vegan because occasionally an amazing looking dish will show up, and
Mhm.
we're like, that's got like 8 different kinds of meat in it, but I'm gonna try a bite.
Yeah. Ooh, look at this new concoction from Taco Bell. Let's try it out.
Not
But
too much Taco Bell. We try to avoid the fast food as much as we can.
yeah, that's my downfall. Anything
Mhm.
fast food. But speaking of non-fast food and non-vegan stuff,
Mhm.
and you have a lot of video games behind you.
I do.
Now, the question a lot I think these are the two favorites of most people. But which did you like better, Dragon Quest 8 or Dragon Quest 11?
Hmm.
Yeah.
On paper, 11 is a better game.
Hmm.
Which one do I prefer?
Yeah.
8. And that's just 8 was the game that brought me back into the franchise.
Hmm.
Because like I played the first one on the NES back when I was but a wee lad. I learned how to read playing that game. And then I'd also picked it up again when 3 came out on the Game Boy Color and enjoyed that because it's 3. It's good in every edition that it gets. And then, yeah, when 8 came out, 8 was just so consuming. And I remember when I finished it and I did the Dragovian trials. And if you've been watching my channel for a while,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
meme how little I do post game. I did
Mhm.
post game in Dragon Quest 8, and I was still hungry afterwards. And after that, I went back and I played through, you
Mhm.
know, so many other games, and then that continued into 9, and I was finishing up 9 around the time that I started the channel.
Mhm.
So yeah, 8 got its hooks in me so hard that I had to go back and keep playing the rest of the series. And for that reason, it's going to continue to be kind of special to me. While 11, if I just grade each of them on a point to point basis,
Mhm.
11's a better game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
11 has a better cast of characters compared to 8 in some ways.
Yeah, better rounded cast of characters,
Mhm.
better written cast of characters, and that's not a knock against eight's
No.
characters. The 8 has fantastic characters as well, but yeah, 11 just it's so much more of the stuff that
Mhm.
made 8 amazing.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, I kind of thought this question would give you a laugh.
Mhm,
Now, everybody's seen. If you've seen Futurama, you'll get this. If not, you'll people figure it out in the long run. But there's something in Dragon Quest that's also known, very well known for some people. So the two options are: would you rather have Snoo Snoo or Puff Puff?
which Puff Puff?
Up to you.
Because that's a dangerous question. Puff Puff varies wildly. I'm gonna play it safe and say Snoo Snoo. With Puff Puff, you never know what you're going to get.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
might be going bungee jumping. Somebody might touch up your makeup. You don't know.
Yeah. 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 Snoo Snoo. Oh, it made me laugh so hard when Futurama when they were talking about that, and then watching
Mhm.
all your poof poof and oh man, it just blew my mind. But last question I have for you. Now, when it first came out in the United States, it wasn't called Dragon Quest. It was called Dragon Warrior because
Yep.
I believe another company had the rights to Dragon Quest or something like that, or the name.
TSR, which is the same company that was doing Dungeons and Dragons back at the time,
Hmm.
had, I want to say it was a board game that was called Dragon Quest.
No.
And that's why it was known as Dragon Warrior all the way up until the 8th game came out here in the US.
So, do you prefer Dragon Quest or do you prefer the name Dragon Warrior?
I'm nonplussed. doesn't doesn't bother me either way. I use them interchangeably. If somebody
Yeah.
says one, pretty much everybody who's been in the community for more than a month
Hmm.
knows that you're talking about both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's not like Final Fantasy where, 3 came out over here, but it was actually 6.
I feel like I feel like people have gotten used to that one because it's
Hmm.
been long enough since then, and all of the re-releases have had the correct numbering.
Hmm.
So my fingers are crossed that Final Fantasy fans have their numbering right now.
Yeah. Now, are you talking about Final Fantasy 2 or are you talking about Final Fantasy 4, which came out as 2, but now is 4, and now, it's like, what? So yeah, the stuff we're going to talk about is
Mhm.
about the vegans and about Dragon Quest. So, we'll actually start with the vegans. Now, how
End
long
on a
have you?
high note.
Yeah, yeah. And on other things that I know a little bit more about. Uh, Now, how long have you been a partial vegan? I guess is what I call it, without eating cheese.
I want to say we switched over to a plant-based diet in either 2018 or 2019.
Okay.
I think it was around there. It was definitely before COVID hit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is it hard? Was it hard to first switch over, or was it kind of like, oh, this is, very good and kind of surprising?
The stuff that was hard about it was actually what was really surprising. My wife Shannon, you know her as Perry from the streams that I've done and like the
Hmm.
Dragon Quest IX Let's Play that she was in. She had been, in charge of groceries and cooking for a while, and I have always been kind of a just, get me my daily allotment of calories. I don't care
Hmm.
what form it takes. Food was not a special thing for
Mm.
me. There were certainly things that I enjoyed. Bacon cheeseburger,
Mm.
pizza, of course. I still enjoy a good pizza. Um, I just can't eat a lot of it or it'll kill me.
Yeah.
um, so the cravings weren't there so much because honestly, we were just so full
Mm.
all of the time. The hardest part was getting all the calories that we needed because when you go plant based, one of the things that you very quickly learn is that plants are way more filling than
Mm.
meat. So you fill up insanely fast on very low calorie but nutrient dense foods.
Mhm.
And like if you're tracking your calories, you get to the end of the day and you're like, I have had maybe half of what I'm supposed to be eating, and I am so full.
Mhm.
So it takes a while to get used to that. But because of that, it's also like just amazing for weight loss. Like I've never been overweight, and I attribute that to not drinking soda and later on moving to that plant-based diet. It's free. I didn't I didn't exercise. I only went back to exercising like 2 months ago, and it had been like 20 years. So I don't I'm not super active, but this diet really prevented me from putting on any weight. Um, the other thing that a lot of people don't talk about is you suddenly have a surge of fiber in your
Oh
diet.
no.
Most Americans are not getting anywhere near enough fiber, and that's
Mm.
why there's jokes about things like you know Taco Bell and having
Mhm.
to go to the bathroom, and that's just because there's a lot of beans in
Yeah.
Taco Bell, and suddenly you're getting a lot more fiber than you're used to, and your body doesn't know how to deal with it. The first 2 weeks to a month of going plant based,
Mhm.
we were so gassy. It was painful. Like babies getting gas and not being able to do anything because they
Mhm.
just need to burp or fart. That was the first 2 weeks to a month of it. And it was the weirdest thing to suddenly have to deal with. And eventually your body just gets used to it and it's
Mhm.
used to the amount of fiber that you get. And it's a non-issue.
Yeah. Did you find that it was kind of like harder to make your meals like at that point when you weren't like switching when you were still in, let's say meat and chicken and fish if you ate fish or whatever. Did you find it was harder to actually like set up meals when you became vegan at first, or is it kind of like, oh, this is easy, we have
It
a cookbook?
it wasn't something that really fell on me.
Mm.
Perry Shannon had always been in charge of groceries and cooking,
Mhm.
and I was in charge of cleaning and dishes.
Mm.
So all the meal planning kind of fell on her, and she got started with a magazine or a book called Forks Over Knives, and that was what got her going on it. And she told me that she wanted to try this diet, and I was like, well, it doesn't make sense to buy two sets of groceries.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to do it with you so long as I eat. um I don't recall her having many issues with meal planning. um Now I'm doing the meal planning.
Hmm.
Couple of months ago, she got a new job, which is great, but it's also on the other side of town. And then she also goes to the gym after work. So she's not getting home until it is dinner time. Meanwhile, I work 5 minutes away and I'm home at like 5:05.
Oh, that's
So
not bad.
we've traded places on cooking and meal prep and cleaning and that stuff. So now I do the meal planning and groceries and cooking, and meal planning's rough. Like, I thought going out and buying the groceries was going to be the hardest part. No,
Hmm.
no, the meal planning, just trying to keep y- you know meals for 7 days a week.
Hmm.
Um, w- Within our diet, primarily within our diet. Like, we had breakfast burritos tonight, but the vegan cheese is just terrible. So we used actual real shredded cheese tonight. It was great. um, yeah, just coming up with interesting meals so you don't get
Hmm.
bored with your food. That's the hard part. And it also has to be stuff that I'm comfortable making, because she's a foodie. She
Hmm.
enjoys cooking. She enjoys the entire process of it. I don't know if you remember, this was a video that went up like 10, maybe 9 or 10 years ago, just a short one,
Hmm.
because she wanted me to cut onions, because she had asked me to help her cut onions. And she needed everybody to see how bad I was at cutting onions.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm much better now.
Oh man. Do you is I guess is there certain meat less products that are taste better to you than some of the meat products that you had before?
um, so there's the two big ones, the Impossible and Beyond
Hmm.
meats. Both of those are great. They taste like meat. They're also just as bad for you
Oh,
as
really?
yeah, if you get an Impossible Burger, it is equally as bad for you as getting a greasy Whopper. That got salt, it's got oil, it's got all that stuff that makes it taste amazing. So um it varies. There's some other stuff. There's a meat substitute that we really enjoy called Satan,
Okay.
Satan. It's spelled like Satan. But that's made from vital wheat gluten, and it
Okay.
literally just takes on the flavor of whatever you cook it with. So we've had some very impressive stuff with that. The best ribs I've ever had in my life were vegan ribs made using this vital wheat gluten at a restaurant up in Denver called Watercourse. Um, and it shocked me how
Huh.
good they are at making replacement meat, and they
Hmm.
can't get cheese right.
Seems like it'd be an easy one for cheese, like, but nope, apparently not.
You'd think they've got a couple of things going for them. We have some pretty great nachos that we can do, and that's done making. You make a cheese sauce
Hmm.
using cashews and a nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast has a very cheddary flavor.
Okay.
So you got the cashews, you got your nutritional yeast, and then you got a bunch of other stuff that you'd throw into like a cheese dip or something, and you just blend it, and it comes out great for nachos. So there's stuff like that. There's some pretty interesting cheese spreads that are made with tree nuts, and those aren't too bad. But for stuff like pizza, it's just
Not there.
It's not there. It's not there. I'm looking forward to the day that it is, but it's not there.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
If you had three positives to going vegan and then three negatives, which would they be?
Let's do positives first.
Okay.
First of all, it's just easier to be healthier on this diet. Um, I'm not saying it's you can't be healthy on a meat diet, and I've got some fun facts about keto actually. But yeah, it's just really easy to be healthy on this diet. Two, groceries are so freaking cheap. Oh my gosh, plants are so freaking cheap. We're feeding a family of four, and my weekly groceries are usually under $100, which is insane right now.
Dang.
Yeah, it's wild how cheap it is to eat vegan. A lot of people complain about how expensive it is, but that's if you're ordering food, if you're eating out, if you're buying like the fancy meat substitutes. Yeah, because Beyond Meat is really freaking expensive.
Mhm.
But if you're just going like full plant based, oh, it's so easy. It's so insanely cheap. And then three, it's just better for the environment, full stop. And that's one less thing that I blame myself for when I'm going to bed at night.
I understand that.
I don't know how critical everybody else is of themselves and what they're doing to our planet, but I tend to look at myself sometimes and like, my kids have to live here.
Yeah.
Downsides of going vegan, cheese. um, Breaking bread with people. When you have a narrow, strict diet and those dietary restrictions, it makes it harder to be able to, go out and do stuff with friends or be invited to things.
Mhm.
Shannon's side of the family will regularly do like, a restaurant dinner, maybe once a month whenever there's birthdays in that month, just to cover everybody's birthdays.
Mm.
And restaurant, like family restaurants, their vegan option is usually a bowl of lettuce that they call a salad. So that's always disappointing, and I usually plan around that and try and eat something beforehand, and
Mhm.
then I'll eat like breadsticks or something. So there's the social aspect of it that's frustrating, and then the third part, the worst part, is that you're associated with other vegans. And vegans are just freaking annoying.
I
I
understand that.
looked into other I looked into vegan communities like, okay, well, if we make a bunch of vegan friends, it would be easier to socialize because,
Mhm.
then we're all eating the same diet. Hi, Goose. Then we're all eating like the same diet and it'd be easy. And I looked into it and oh my God,
Mhm.
it's, I don't know if it's just the communities that I looked into. I don't know if it's just the really vocal side of it. Everybody has jokes.
Mhm.
How do you know if somebody's vegan? They'll tell you. Um,
That's a good point.
I have seen them cancel members of their own community over somebody eating honey because
Mm.
they're not vegan enough. And I'm a big fan of honey myself. It's a great natural sweetener.
Mhm.
And we actually have a pretty solid symbiotic relationship with bees. It doesn't make sense to not eat honey. A lot of hives will actually collapse if we don't help them
Mhm.
use their extra honey.
Yeah.
So it's wild to me to see this group of people that I share 99% of my diet with just be so rude
Yeah.
to people who don't fit exactly within their expectations. They'll ghost their families over eating meat. They'll ghost, any potential friendships from people who refuse to go vegan with them. And I think it creates a lot of negativity
Mhm.
regarding the diet. because they want everybody to be perfect. And while I agree that um, there's way too much meat consumption, we don't need everybody to be perfect. We just need everyone to be a little bit better, and
Mhm.
that would do a load of good things for our planet. So it's just frustrating watching
Yeah.
them create that toxic behavior within their community, and then people see that toxic behavior and they're like, Jesus Christ, I want nothing to do with vegans. And like, I see that, I'm like, I get that.
Yeah. Now, one more question for you.
Mhm.
With vegan, what is it basically more just plant food, or is it like, because I know, that vegetarians are able to
Mhm.
eat certain stuff, and then because you
Eh,
just said honey would be a no-no, but that seems like to
yeah,
me that
honey
a
falls
weird.
under vegetarian, falls under, I think they call it ovo lacto vegetarian. You know, you can still have eggs and cheese and dairy. You can still, vegetarians typically still consume animal byproducts. With vegans, a large portion of the community believes that no animal byproducts,
Okay.
none. um, and that's it's very narrow. Um, and I also think that they're not looking at the whole picture. A lot of areas you might not have access to fresh produce.
Mm.
There's certainly parts of the world that are kind of food deserts. There's areas that rely on meat and dairy because they simply don't have plants there for people to eat. So they have their animals turn those plants into food for the people. Um, so there's just a lot of narrow-mindedness
Mhm.
there.
I understand that. Yeah, I'd never, I mean, personally, I'm nothing against vegans, nothing against
Mhm.
vegetarians. I just like meat too much, so it'd be
It's
a.
delicious. As somebody who ate meat for, God, what, 37, 38 years of his life? Yeah, I totally get it. And
Yeah.
I I just think that people should be like more aware of the
Mhm.
impact that we have on everything and maybe be more selective
Yeah.
of where we're getting our meat and cheese from. You know,
Mhm.
try and get it local, try and get it from a farm that you trust. And that's not always an option for a lot of folks because typically getting local meats and cheeses can be a little bit more expensive and it's more of a specialty item.
Yeah.
And if you are the kind of person who has to have meat every single meal, um, that gets very expensive very
Oh,
quickly.
yeah. We've been trying to go away from. We still eat meat, but we kind of go more to chicken now instead of ground beef. So
Mhm.
trying to at
Yeah,
least do that, but
fish, depending on where
yeah.
you live, but overfishing is a significant problem as well. So
Mm.
it is impossible to engage in capitalism without causing harm.
Yeah.
But we all kind of have to engage in it because that's where we live. We live in the middle of it. And I think that being vegan for me is just a way to approach it a bit more responsibly than I normally could.
I understand that completely. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what I'm hearing though is that this is a quest for food. So we'll
It
talk.
is food quest.
Uh-huh. So I was, you are a big Dragon Quest guy, so that was a segue if everybody can get it. I'm
Mhm.
terrible at them. But I know that you play Dragon Quest a lot. Played every single one of them. Probably even 10, even though
I
it
did
hasn't come.
play I did play all of version 1 of 10, and I played a good chunk of version 2. It's gotten far beyond that at this point.
Hmm.
But yeah, for a while there, I was picking up the Japanese releases as they came out. I was studying Japanese very aggressively.
Oh.
When DQ11 came out, I imported that and played it, I think, a year before it was available here. And with a lot of help from some other Japanese speaking Dragon Quest fans. And my rudimentary knowledge and some Google Translate, I slowly got through the entire game.
Yeah, I've tried to like learn Japanese. My fiance watches a lot of Chinese, Japanese, Korean shows on Netflix, everything like that. I don't understand a word they're saying, but I've I've tried to learn, but it's like they're speaking either too fast or that's just I'm like, all right. So I'm like, have English
It's
subtitles.
learning languages are weird. There's a snowball effect. The less you know of a language, the harder it is to learn, and then the more you know, the easier it is to start inferring other things. And you kind of hit this tipping point where you're like, I understood 90% of that, and I feel like I can infer the rest.
Mm,
And that's about the point that I was getting to before I fell off my study wagon
mhm.
again, and I have no idea where I am now. The wagon left without me.
She was like, bye. But do you yeah, you've played, let's see, what you played all the Dragon Quest. Have you played the re-releases of them? Like I know Dragon Quest 8 come back out on the 3DS, it was on the PS2. Um I
Yep,
think Dragon Quest 11 came out twice.
I've played. Yeah, Dragon Quest 11 got a fairly significant update with the definitive edition
Mhm.
when that came out on Switch, and then later replaced the original version of the game on Steam, which is kind of a shame because there's some significant differences in there. There was a whole bow gun mini game where you had to go around the world searching for targets, and that's just not in any retail available version of the game now. That's gone, which is kind of a shame. I feel like if you purchased definitive edition, you should have an option to be like, I want to play the original.
Yeah. So it's like Link's crossbow training, but better.
There's no motion controls, fortunately. It's mostly just more of an Easter egg hunt.
Mm.
Shooting something with the bow gun consists of looking at it until you get a target marker on it, and then you hit the button and you shoot it.
No, yeah, yeah, that makes it easy.
but but it was nice being able to go out and find those because you'd be rewarded with it, usually in the form of different stat seeds and skill seeds,
Mhm.
which, if you're not familiar with Dragon Quest, are items that permanently boost a stat or give you a skill point. Dragon Quest 11 works on a skill tree based system, so you can throw points into getting new abilities. And those items are still available in the game now. It's just that they've been replaced with Tickington. You get all the same stuff that you could in the bow game. It's just through the Tickington side quests now.
Do you feel like that they, I guess with one, 2, and 3, they came out in the Nintendo Entertainment System way back in the day, right?
Hmm.
Do you
And
think
the MSX.
there you go. Yeah, see, learning. Do you think that back then that they hadn't figured out their like way to send you to a certain location? Because I remember the original Legend of Zelda when it came out, it was like go you find the sword, and the next thing you know, it's like, all right, where do I go now? Do you feel like
Mhm.
Dragon Quest was harder to find out where to go at that point when you were first playing them, or kind of like I figured
If
out
you're
this, it's easy.
if you're not paying attention, I feel like it's still, even if you're not paying attention, it's easier to figure out where you need to go compared to Legend of Zelda. Original Legend of Zelda, love love that game. I used to play the hell out of it. I wrote my own guide for it. Um, it's very opaque your first time playing through. You get zero information on where to go. Dragon Warrior 1 on the NES, it gives you all of the information that you need. It just doesn't tell you that it's information that you need. But if you, and this was how I started learning how to play the older games when I didn't have a guide, and this was a very handy skill to have during Dragon Quest 7. You just take a note of what every person says, and sometimes it's something stupid like there's a town to the northwest, and in today's terms you're like, who cares? In Dragon Warrior 1 it means I need to go there.
Mhm.
And I need to talk to people there. And Dragon Warrior 1 is just a very non-linear game.
Mhm.
All the information is there to be successful, and it really just comes down to building yourself a map of breadcrumbs and
Okay.
then following those breadcrumbs and saying like, okay, well, there was a guy named Garen who had a harp. Great. And then later on, as you're taking your notes, you're like, oh, there was a harp that used to attract monsters. Oh, I can trade this harp to this guy to get the, not the stones of sunlight. Was the rod. I can't remember the name, but it all becomes apparent as you talk to people and you take notes. So I feel like they actually had very good, tight game design in telling the players where they needed to go with Dragon Warrior 1. And then based on people's experiences with 1, they kind of focused it in 2. 2 is a much more direct in its direction giving, and then 3 just like nailed the formula, and they've really stuck with that same exploration, quest line, story advancement since 3.
Mhm.
And then in 4 they kind of nailed the writing and character development.
Yeah, I knew my first Dragon Quest game. Was actually Dragon Quest 8 on the PS2. So learned
Mhm.
that was going back now. I got the Switch copies of 1, 2, and 3
Yeah.
that they released because it's a little cheaper than getting the NES versions right
So,
now.
so much cheaper. I 15 years ago, I was collecting retro video games and wondering when the retro game bubble is going to burst, and it
Mhm.
still hasn't.
Oh, I know.
So, I don't know what the hell's going on with that market. It's
Mhm.
wild. I sold a copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga 2 years
Mm,
ago, and it went for over $500. No case, just discs.
that's nuts.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
insane what the market looks like right now.
Yeah, even the sweet coding games from back in the PS1 generation. I mean, the first two are going
Mhm.
for like over 100 easy. Second
The
one, I think, is
first
going
one,
nuts.
oh, the second one is crazy, crazy rare, crazy expensive. Because the second one was going for over $200 15 years ago,
Hmm.
and the first one was only going for 10. So to see the first one being that expensive now, it's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. So all the Dragon Quest you've played, do you have a personal favorite besides? I guess we talked about 8 and 11 earlier. Besides those two.
8, 3, 5, 8, and 11. Those are my personal favorites in the series. I think that's those are my preferred ones. I can
Mhm.
see why, some people would put 4 above 3, but 3 was kind of special for me. Then the
Mhm.
same way that 8 is kind of special for me. So those are my special 4. But I think that being a fan of
Mhm.
any game in this series is legitimate. There's something there to love in each and every single one of them.
Mhm.
Um, I do get a little bit curious when somebody says Dragon Quest 2 is my favorite. I'm like, which other ones have you played?
All right.
Is that the only one?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like 2. I want to be on your side, but I'm really curious.
Yep. Yeah, I understand it completely. I just started. I played a little bit of 1, and then I left my. I moved down here to Florida with my fiance, so
Mhm.
left all my stuff in Michigan. So I had to eventually I'm gonna get back up there and get my Dragon Quest and play that again. But yeah, I started with 8, and then got the Switch ones, and it's totally like starting at 8. It's so weird going back to 1, 2, and 3 because like 8's like you gotta go here, then you go here, and then 1, 2, and 3 are like
Mhm.
so.
You need to go find your cousin.
Yeah.
He's over that way
Yeah.
somewhere. And then you get there and they're like, "Oh, he was just here. He
Yep.
left."
Yep.
What?
Yeah. So if so like for me, I start with 8. Is there one that you would say for people who are just coming in the Dragon Quest series? Is there a good one to start with?
I think that 11 is a great blanket answer to that question, not knowing more about them. Um, if they have other JRPGs that they're really into and really enjoy, then you can kind of start getting into it from like a personality question. Like if somebody wants to get into Dragon Quest and they're a big fan of Pokemon, then either Dragon Quest Monsters 2 or Joker 2. Or if they want to really go with the main franchise, then 5, because 5 has huge range of party options because you can tame monsters and bring them onto your party. And there's a lot of overlap in interest there, I think. If somebody prefers a very open world that's very hands-free, then you could make a good argument for the first one if they want just something very simple. Or you can also make an argument for like 6, which is kind of this weird one among the fans. There's people who are fans of 6 will defend it with their lives, but it's also one of the weird ones in the franchise where I see kind of more hate than it deserves. And I think a lot of it is just due to the very broad pacing that it has. 6 is not afraid to let you get lost and be confused for 2 to 3 hours while you figure out what you're supposed to be doing. And it's a massive world map, 2 massive world maps. So 6 it has its fans, and I can see a personality type that I'd be like, actually play 6. You would like 6.
Is there things that you see other RPGs that you've played over the years that have done that you're like, man, Dragon Quest should have totally done that at one point or another?
Mm, no, because I feel like it already did that. The skill system that they built has been great. The job system that's in some of the games, namely 6, 7, and 9, and to a lesser extent 3. Yeah, the job system has always been in there. The thing with Dragon Quest is that it's always a very tight and focused game design. There's never really any hint of creep in Dragon Quest. You don't feel like there's a bunch of features that kind of got thrown in and none of them got fleshed out. Everything is there for a reason within the context of that entry, and it's very polished. And I can say that about every single mainline game.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Not
was.
necessarily all the spin-offs.
Yeah, I was like when I got into Dragon Quest 8, I was also playing Final Fantasy 10 when it came out on the PS2 at the same
Mhm.
kind of time, but a little bit.
Oh, FF10 was so good. I
Oh, it
liked that
was
game.
amazing. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite RPGs on the PS2. Not my favorite RPG of all
Mhm.
time, but definitely on the PS2.
It's good
Um,
though. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Blitzball. I love Blitzball. A lot of people hated Blitzball, and I don't know why, but it is
I
what it
thought
is.
Blitzball was one of the best parts about Final Fantasy X. And it's interesting that we're talking about 10 because for the longest time, 10 was one of the games that I really didn't like. And I've kind of come back around to appreciating it for all the
Mhm.
stuff that I didn't like when I first played it. But yeah, at the time, I thought Blitzball was the best part of the game. And I hated like half of the characters. I didn't like Tidus, the laughing scene. There's a bunch of stuff there that's undercooked. There's a lot of stuff in Final Fantasy that tends to be undercooked. And I say that as a Final Fantasy fair weather fan. And it's one of the reasons why I prefer Dragon Quest over Final Fantasy is there's a level of polish that you're going to get in a Dragon Quest game. Whereas Final Fantasy is very much not afraid to experiment, and
Mhm.
sometimes it turns out great, and then other times it comes out kind of weird, and then other times it just doesn't age well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it ages really well. Because like 8 and 10, I hated my first times playing them. And
Mhm.
then, coming back to them like a decade later or more, I'm like, oh, okay. I get this part now. There's
Mhm.
still some undercooked parts. Um, Kamari deserved better.
It's
He's there with you the entire game, and he gets like one story arc point, and it's just like a fight. It's
yep.
just very disappointing.
Oh, here's my brothers. I get to fight them once, and that's it.
Yeah, that's the part that I was thinking of. Or
Yeah.
the guy with the red hair in 9.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, guy who was there in the party and then like got no
Yep.
story development. He's like, I'm here. They didn't write my story, but I'm here.
Yeah, yeah, that's I've noticed that with a lot of Final Fantasy compared to Dragon Quest. Like Dragon Quest seems that you get more about each of the characters. Final
Hmm.
Fantasy's like, hey, we got Titus, we got Yuna, and we got Orin and Waka, basically
Yeah.
main four in that one. But it's like after that, good luck finding out about Riku or
Hmm. Or sometimes they'll just end a character's story like really early
Mhm.
on, like Freya in 9.
Oh
Her
yeah,
her entire plot is done in like disc 1.
yep,
Then there's nothing else for her to do except hang out and be a dragoon, which she's great at. But like, I loved Freya. I would have liked to see more story
hmm
points. Um, 6 was also guilty of that.
yeah,
6 had an amazing cast of characters. What, over 12 different party members? Like
yeah,
14, 15, something ridiculous. But a lot of them were kind of afterthoughts. Umaro doesn't get to do much aside from be a Yeti.
hmm
Go just
yeah,
kind of there being go. And then other characters get like amazing stories like Cyan and Shadow.
mhm. Yeah. I remember like with with you and Dragon Quest getting blown away by a lot of the stuff that you've seen over the years playing it and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
I remember one of the first things that blew my mind just in RPGs and uh playing them and all that stuff was actually getting to well, it's not I was about to say spoiler, but the game's been out for 22 years now, so
Yeah, I think we're safe.
yeah. When Final Fantasy X came out, when you found out you could have Anima on your team for the first time, that just blew my mind because I remember fighting him with Seymour and getting
Mhm.
destroyed by him and everything like that, by her actually. But
You said Seymour, and I could feel the bile rising up. That last fight with Seymour is.
mhm.
I wake up at night thinking about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Three was more. I hated three. Four, Seymour four was weird. I was like, what in the world? Because Seymour three, you have on top of Mount Gagazet. I remember that
That
whole
was
battle. Ugh.
That's the one
Yep.
that's burned into my mind. Worst boss fight in that game.
Uh huh.
Unaleska,
Hardest.
you can make an argument for, but she's really just a puzzle.
Yeah.
But yeah, Seymour was. Oh my god, I don't.
Hmm.
It's hard to think of how many bosses in a JRPG have killed me more than that.
Oh yeah. Yep.
The Time Worm in Dragon Quest XI is the only one that pops out as having killed me more than Seymour did.
Yeah. I got. I mean, blown away by Seymour so many times. It was just ridiculous. And then you're
Mhm.
dumb. You play a dumb point because at that point your brain's mush. Because you've been killed so many times. You're like, all right, I figured it out. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, look, Waka's a zombie. Let me go throw a high potion on him and kill him automatically for some odd reason. Because I wasn't paying attention.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yep. Yep. Oh, here's a high potion when he's zombie. Oh crap! Son of a.
I, I remember that was a big strat you could use in FF8, though. You could
Mhm.
throw Phoenix Downs on undead bosses and kill them in one shot.
Yep. Yeah, that was one of the bosses in Final Fantasy X. Um. Oh, I can't think of the boss's name. I could see
Was
the battle.
Unaleska.
Yep.
Unaleska had a big zombie thing. And once you figure out that if you just zombie your own party, that fight is easy.
Yeah.
But before doing that, she's so stinking impossible. And then
Yep.
you're like, oh, wait a minute. If I'm dead, then that can't hurt me. Let's just all be dead. This is
Yep.
the perfect plan.
Yeah. I love all RPGs. Is there any other RPGs? I mean, you played Legend, not Legend Dragoon. I was gonna say Legend Dragoon. I think that's one I've gotten to try to get you to play still.
Yeah. You're one of the people who keeps telling me to play Legend of Dragoon. No, I haven't played
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
That's heavily requested. Fantasy Star is another
Okay.
series. I was actually when I was starting the channel, because I just wanted something to do,
Hmm.
it was either Fantasy Star or Dragon Quest. Like,
Hmm.
those were like my two series. Fantasy Star was actually my preferred series, but at that point in time, Fantasy Star Online 2 had already been announced, and
Hmm.
they'd announced it saying this is going to be coming to the West also.
Yeah.
There's a story there. We're not going to get into it. But Dragon Quest had Dragon Quest 10 announced,
Hmm.
and Dragon Quest games were not really getting a lot of releases. We
Hmm.
still fight with that. It's kind of feast or famine with the franchise. So I just wanted to try and share Dragon Quest existing
Hmm.
with people. So I started playing Dragon Quest and uploading videos of it.
Yeah, I think you were, yeah, definitely, like I said before, you were one of the first, that actually did Dragon Quest, you and, like I say,
Hmm.
H.C. Bailey. But
Yep.
yeah, I remember being blown away by, that because I had never seen before, like at that point, you guys doing RPGs, Chugga Conroy coming out and doing what he was doing with
Oh man, I
Earthbound.
forgot about him. Yeah.
Yep. NCS, watching his stuff way back when he was still doing the freaking recorder
Hmm.
LPs before anything else was done. But yeah, you guys all blew me away with all that stuff, and I was so I was like, "What in the world? What is this? I got to figure all this out." And then, oh, about 20 years later, still haven't figured anything out.
There's still some stuff in the franchise that I forget, even playing it
Yeah.
multiple times. There's a dungeon in Dragon Quest VIII
Hmm.
that I always get stuck in, and it's always something dumb. It's I think it's the labyrinth where you have to fight the big boss mimic at the end, but there's a portion of it where you need to look up.
Hmm.
And it's the only point in the game where you have to actually enter first person view and look up. And I
Yeah.
always forget about that part. I I remember it when I'm thinking about Dragon Quest VIII, but if I sat down and started playing it right now, it would leave my brain. And as soon as I get there,
Mhm.
I would be stuck in there for like 2 hours going, why do I get stuck here?
Yep. Yep, I understand that. Yeah, they got some weird like video games. Period. They have weird things like that. Like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker used the binoculars once in the whole entire game, and then you're basically
Hmm.
done. They force you once to use it. It's like, why change that up? But video. It's kind of cool how they some games do that. It's like, oh, Dragon Quest. Like, oh, I have to look up now, and it's like, that's different. We haven't done that the whole game, but it's kind of cool idea now. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, but
I kind of wish there was some more direction on it because
mhm,
I I don't even remember what freaking button it is by the time I get there.
yeah, I understand that completely. Now what? Let's see. You played Dragon Quest, played a lot of the Final Fantasies. You played Fantasy Star, like you said. What
Mhm.
are five very underrated RPGs that you would say, for somebody new in coming in RPGs, I guess, that you would say you need to play these games because they're not as well known, but they're, fun still.
Uh, the Atelier franchise is freaking wonderful. I've only played two of them so far, but Mana Chemia was one that somebody sent to me to play on stream several years ago, and I was shocked at how much I liked that game. I was not expecting it to be as good as it is. Are you familiar with the Atelier series at all?
I've seen some Let's Plays of it on YouTube, but not
Mhm.
enough in depth that.
There, it, for your viewers, it's a franchise that usually revolves around creating your own alchemy shop.
Mm,
And the gameplay loop consists of going out and getting ingredients for new recipes, and those recipes and potions that you craft will help you to advance the story and get into new areas to find new ingredients. And that's the core loop. What really impressed me with Manichemia, and to a lesser extent Atelier Ryza, which is the
mm,
other one that I play, um, is how much your character progression is tied to the crafting. In a lot of RPGs, your primary way to get stronger is go kill enemies, get XP, buy better equipment.
Hmm.
And in Atelier, Manichemia particular, the XP like hardly even matters. Instead, your characters have a growth chart. It's almost like the FF10 sphere grid,
Yeah.
but you unlock things in their growth chart just by crafting that.
Hmm.
So, in order to make your characters stronger, you have to learn the crafting system. And it's not as simple as, take one of these, two of these, and three of these, stir them up in a pot, and you have an item.
Yeah.
Because items have a different quality to them, and you can get different elements attached to them. And you wind up with a very deep and engaging system where building out the perfect items,
Mm.
that's the boss fight. There are boss fights in the game, but they're not as interesting. They take a back seat to learning the crafting system so you can make the really cool gear that does exactly what you want it to do.
Mhm.
And like once you have everything set, it just feels so good to actually go into a fight and then know where you're going with it. And Manichemia was interesting because it kind of had that whole persona. You're going to a school
Mhm.
type vibe, and there's passage of time, and you only have so much time in a given day to spend with each of your different classmates, and you build relationships with them, and it was just so stinking good. Manichemia. If you haven't played the Atelier series, check out Manichemia. It was on the PS2.
Okay.
Um, I have no idea where else you can get it. It you might find it floating in some shipwreckage. I don't
Yeah.
know. What is another franchise that I've really gotten in? I need to stare at my games for a second for inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah, I have I for people who, have an Xbox 360, I thoroughly enjoyed Lost Odyssey. If anybody's played that one, that was a great series. Or a great game, not series, but three discs, which
Great
was weird.
singular entry to a
Yeah.
series. Yeah, I really enjoyed Blue Dragon, and that was the same
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah. Yeah, Blue Dragon was great.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, it was just Xbox 360, I'm sorry for fans of it. It didn't really have any good RPGs other than those three.
oh, the Grandia series.
Mm.
I really enjoyed Grandia 2 and Grandia 3. I couldn't get into the first one much, and I know that that's kind of unheard of within that fandom. But
Mhm.
yeah, I really enjoyed Grandia 2 and Grandia 3. Those were great games. Very interesting combat. Um, it's not a series, but it freaking should be. Skies of Arcadia.
Yep. That game
That's
got
another.
expensive.
Oh my god. Yeah, Dreamcast and GameCube
Mhm.
prohibitively expensive now. That was another one that I sold
Yeah.
to help pay off my car. It was like
Ooh.
a stack of classic RPGs, and I sold them. I was like, "Oh, there's my the rest of my car payments."
Yep. Yeah, I've looked into Skies Arcadia is one that I want to get because I have a Dreamcast and I have a GameCube, but it's like I've heard also that you're supposed to play it on the GameCube because apparently it's better on the GameCube completely, but
Well,
in some ways.
there's a couple of changes with it. The Dreamcast one is kind of interesting because it
Mhm.
makes use of the. You have a Dreamcast, right?
Yep.
The VMUs.
Yeah.
If you have the VMU with like the screen and the controller and everything,
Mhm.
there's a mini game, like a Tamagotchi style mini game, where you can send one of the characters to your save file on the VMU and then take it with you, and he will
Oh, that's cool.
explore while you go about your day, and you can get special items in the game when you plug your VMU back in.
Huh.
So there's some interesting features in the Dreamcast one that aren't in the GameCube one. The
Mhm.
GameCube one is the definitive edition of the game, though. But
Yeah.
yeah, don't discount the Dreamcast one. There's some interesting stuff there as well.
The Dreamcast was a system, I believe, before its time, in my opinion, but
Absolutely, way before its time. But a combination of not having a DVD
Hmm.
and then just low volume of
Yep.
games compared to the
Yeah, Xbox and PS2 and all that stuff when it came out.
the
Yeah.
God, the amount of games that the PlayStation 2 had. I was working at a Game Crazy at the time, which
Oh
was a
wow.
video game store that was tied to Hollywood Videos.
Yep.
And I had to make the comparison for people that both of them had the same ratio
Hmm.
of like good games. The PlayStation 2, you could have a wall of 500 games,
Hmm.
and 100 of those games, I guarantee you, are going to be terrible.
Oh yeah.
The Dreamcast, you have a wall of 20 games.
Hmm.
Two of those games are terrible. So it's like the same ratio, but it's
Yeah. Yep.
there was very focused quality control within the Dreamcast ecosystem, I think. Whereas with the PlayStation 2, Sony was like,
Yep.
license it, get it out the door. I don't care what it is.
Yeah. And that kind of bit him in the butt a couple times, especially with the guy game.
That was
Everybody.
also on the Xbox though.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was a bad.
There were poor decisions made in
Yeah.
that era of gaming.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what he was saying about Grandia, good luck finding on the Dreamcast for cheap right now. But if you do play
I
Grandia
bet
2,
that one's on Steam though, right?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, Grandia 2, if you ever play it, play on the Dreamcast. Do not play on the PS2 because the PS2 has so many game glitches. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we used to make fun of the PS2 because of how poorly it ran
Hmm.
Grandia 2. Even pre-rendered cutscenes, it would lock up on pre-rendered cutscenes and drop frames. It was
Yep.
ridiculous how poorly it handled that game. And Grandia 2 should have run like butter on the
Hmm.
PS2. It's such a bad port.
Yeah. Yeah, they could have easily. I mean, they could have given stuff. I mean, the Dreamcast was powerful, but PS2, had a lot more stuff that could do that Dreamcast couldn't. But it's like
Mhm.
at that point, it's like you should have just brought it, added stuff to it, but also, should have been able to take care of the original game itself too. But
Yeah.
apparently not. Speaking of terrible games, this will probably be the last couple things we'll talk about because I know I'm gonna get you fired up, and this is gonna be fun.
Oh no, are we doing this?
So,
All right.
one of the streams I watched him play had a end game that was beautiful for us, terrible for him. But it's a series that just had a new game come out called Automata. Uh, but the one that he played that he was really enjoying was
I,
Near.
I enjoyed the first run of Near Gestalt, and the first run of it was great. Um, Getting bullied into playing it a second time, and everybody saying, "Oh, the game is so much better in New Game Plus." Near fans, y'all are. I don't understand Near fans. um, I think that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I also think that Near fans are objectively wrong. Like, Near Gestalt, the first run, I enjoyed most of it.
Mhm.
Um, the whole novel part of the game in the forest, that was
Mhm.
grating to do once, but I got past it. I kind of like the variability of the gameplay, the bosses being kind of a bullet hell
Mhm.
within an action RPG. That was fun. I enjoyed the bosses. The game has beautiful music. Before anybody freaking comes at me, Nier has beautiful music. I will not say a bad thing about the music in Nier. I will sit down. I'll happily listen to a Nier soundtrack. Fantastic music.
Mhm.
It's the writing and it's the game design. Yeah, the second time around was just awful because the first ending left kind of a bitter taste in my mouth because it's
Mhm.
so up its own butt. Um, Yoko Taro. writes like I did when I was 15.
Mm.
And that is not a kind thing to say about his writing. It is he's trying so hard to be deep. Yoko Taro is the entire I'm 14 and this is deep subreddit,
Mhm.
but it got lost in a hot topic. It's just not good writing. Automata was worse.
Yeah.
And Automata should have. I'm ranting now. Everyone was like, Automata is so much better. Automata is so much better. When I was complaining about my second run of Gestalt,
Yeah.
Automata is so much better. It's made by Platinum Games. You're going to love it. That game is a buggy mess. I hadn't played a game that riddled with bug and camera problems since Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast, since Sonic
Yeah.
Adventure 1 on the Dreamcast. That camera is a mess. And I don't understand how the same studio that gave us Metal Gear Rising and
Mhm.
Bayonetta managed to drop the ball so hard with the combat in
Mhm.
Automata. It doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because everybody, it feels like, loves Automata, and I
Mhm.
don't understand why. It's like there's a giant in joke that everyone is playing on me. Like,
Uh-huh.
what? Tell him it's good. Just tell him it's good. He's gonna hate it.
Yep. Yep.
I'm sorry. I have an existential crisis every time Automata comes up because I don't understand why it is loved.
Yep. Yeah, I had to poke the bear a little bit there. I was like, eh. 'Cause I remember that was one of the best streams I've ever seen of yours, where you just all of a sudden it went from, oh, this game wasn't that bad, to all of a sudden, oh my, what the hell is happening? What? Just the world blowing up in front of him.
I don't think I've ever ranted so badly about a game. I've ranted about some other games that people really love.
Mhm.
The first Mass Effect.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I hate how it's the gunplay,
yeah.
really, in the first Mass Effect. The fact that you can create. uh, I played it for maybe half an hour,
Mhm.
and like you get your background and everything. And I made my character a war hero, and he was a sniper. And I get into combat with a rifle, and he's like, "What are you
It's
doing?"
all over the place.
And everyone's like, "Oh, he'll get better as he levels up." I'm like, "He's a war hero. He's a sharpshooter.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
This isn't his first day."
Nope. I mean, at least the story for the end of 3 wasn't bad. Oh wait.
Oh, don't do that. I actually really enjoyed watching the Mass Effect games.
Mhm.
When I was married to my first wife, she was a big Mass Effect fan, and
Mhm.
she tried to get me to play, and that was where I was like, I cannot freaking play this game. But I would happily sit on the couch and watch her play for
Yeah.
hours. So I've effectively seen Mass Effect. The ending of 3 was
Choice.
ill-conceived, I think.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you have 3 different writers working on 3 different games.
Mhm.
The
Yep.
same thing happened to Star Wars. You had
Uh,
3 different directors working on 3 different movies. So you
yep.
got 3 individual movies instead of an actual trilogy, and they're just kind of disjointed.
Yeah. Yeah, they set up the first Star Wars episode 7 so well for what
Yeah.
they wanted to go with. Like, I mean,
And
nothing
then
against.
8 dropped it, but 8 was still like
Yeah.
competent as far as the rules within Star Wars go. And I know a
Mhm.
lot of people disagree with me, and that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are way too hard on Last Jedi.
Mhm.
It's all the parts of it that are bad are things that were bad in the same way in previous Star Wars movies. So I kind
Yeah.
of give it a pass in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
9 is objectively just a very bad film. It's not well written. It's not well directed. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Nine's like, guess who's back? And now we have to connect him to the story somehow.
It might be the worst line I've ever heard in cinema history.
Mhm.
Somehow, Palpatine's returned.
Yeah.
I remember I didn't go see it in theaters because I'm not like a giant Star Wars fan. I'll
Mhm.
watch Star Wars. I haven't watched really any of the shows. Like I
Mhm.
haven't watched Mandalorian. Apparently, I'd love it. Um,
Yeah.
the new Ahsoka Rebels. I haven't really watched any of those, but I'd watched the movies and I liked Rogue One. Rogue One was a solid movie.
Mhm.
I remember enjoying Solo. I could not tell you what the hell it was about.
Yep.
Some stuff happened. There's a sassy droid. Apparently, it's very forgettable because I do not know what the plot of that movie was. I just remember enjoying it while I was watching it.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
9 is just objectively bad.
Mhm.
Like every part of it is bad.
Yeah, yeah, I was blown away because I was like, I grew up like when I was a kid, 1, 2, and 3, my first Star Wars movies, because
Mhm.
I hadn't seen 4, 5, and 6, nothing like that. So I was like, for 1, 2, and 3, still have a soft spot in my heart. I know a lot of Star Wars fans are like, they're not great. It's like,
There's there's some redeeming qualities. I think
mhm,
people are too hard on them as a whole. I feel 2 is pretty bad. 2
mhm,
was my least favorite in the franchise until 9 came out.
yeah,
Um, 3 had some terrible lines in it, but
mhm,
overall I enjoyed 3.
yeah, yeah. The line that I always remember from 3 was like when he kills all younglings, and you watch Obi-Wan Kenobi try and say it with a straight face. He has to cover up his face to just try and say
Because
it.
he's laughing, yeah.
Yep.
Poor Ewan McGregor
Yep.
trying his hardest to make it work.
Yep. Yeah. Ewan was a great Obi-Wan though, from
Oh yeah.
watching the 4, 5, and 6, and you seen the guy,
Mhm.
that played. It was like he's basically spot on to what he's supposed to be doing at that point. But yeah, I think if they change something in the Star Wars movies, I think what they should have done, it's with the prequel trilogies, don't kill off Maul so early. Maul
Yeah,
was perfect.
Maul was so good, and it was such a
Mhm.
shame to have him in just one of those movies. There was a wonderful YouTube series way back in the early days of YouTube where a guy basically rewrote
Mhm.
episodes 1, 2, and 3, and
Yeah.
he did a fantastic job of being like, let's keep Maul alive.
Mhm.
Jar Jar's a Sith Lord. And like he explained it all in such a great way. Like listening to him just talk about how he would have written the movies, I'm like,
Mhm.
that would have been incredible. I'd have watched that. That would have been better than the original trilogy. Oh my god.
Right. Yeah, I would have changed Darth Maul. I would have had him make it to 3, and then have either Obi-Wan have to, fighting his demons, and then it makes Anakin go, "Oh, he's not really in this, the ways of the Jedi as much as I thought," and then makes him
Mhm.
start to contemplate what he's doing, and then, turns on Obi-Wan at the end. But I just
Yeah.
feel like Darth Maul would have been a lot better villain. He could have, he still could have been a puppet for,
Mhm.
Sidious. He could have been making it look like he's the head of everything, but
Mhm.
Sidious turns Anakin at the end. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Sidious was one of the things that I felt they handled all right in the prequel trilogy. I don't really have any issues with him. I don't have issues with any of the actors.
Yeah.
I've found that usually in cinema,
Hmm.
um, it's rarely the actor's fault. Even with like what's her name? Kristen Stewart,
Oh yeah.
the woman who is in the Twilight movies. She's a freaking delight.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, as far as those movies are concerned, she did her best to
Yeah.
play a poorly written character.
Yep. Very true.
Yep. So I have a hard time holding anything against actors as far as their talents are concerned, because I think most of them
Hmm.
were brought on for a good reason. It's very rare that I see an actor that I'm just like, you cannot act. You're so bad at this.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking
So,
speaking of writing, actually, I believe you have
mhm.
written a book, correct?
Yes, I wrote and self-published one novel. It sold 4 copies, I think, and eventually I just wound up delisting it.
Well,
And then since then, every once in a while, I'll get a bug up my butt about it
mhm,
and want to write again, because that was what I wanted to do when I was a teenager. I wanted to be a writer. And then this last NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month,
mhm,
it's a challenge to write an entire novel's worth of words
mhm,
during the month of November. And I did that again this last year. And 2 years ago, I I did it.
mhm,
I have another fantasy novel that I have written. It is still in rough draft state.
mhm.
I don't know if I'm going to edit it. That's where I stand right now.
Yeah. Now I remember. Are you going to continue? Because I know you started your Dragon Quest strategy guide that you were looking at
Mhm.
publishing. Have you decided to finish publishing that, or are you kind of letting them off
I
on the side right now?
I am so close to being done with that damned thing.
Hmm.
I kind of hit a wall on it. All the data is there.
Hmm.
The maps are done and scanned and edited. The guide itself is written. All the tables are in there. All the information is there. It is a full guide for Dragon Quest One.
Hmm.
That is also not a walkthrough. It provides, it's almost like my notebook for Dragon Quest One. It's a reference so that somebody
Yeah.
could look at it and be like, I haven't done that yet. I'm in this dungeon. This is where such and such item is.
Hmm.
I wanted to release it with art. Um, I'm not much of an artist myself, but my
Hmm.
wife is, and she was working on some reimagined uh, monster designs for it.
Hmm.
And they were very nightmarish, and it was awesome. She's a wonderful artist.
Hmm.
And all of it was just very horrifying, ultra realistic versions of Dragon Quest monsters,
Yeah.
like you see sometimes with Pokemon,
Hmm.
getting those horrifying lifelike versions, and you're like, eh.
Yeah.
So she was working on that, and then she got sidetracked by a bunch of stuff.
Mm.
And I waited for a while. I was like, okay, I will learn how to draw. And I did. I spent like 2 weeks following YouTube tutorials for just like drawing basics, and I got very good at just pencil sketching. And I have drawn every monster in the game
Mm.
except for the Dragon Lord and the Dragon Lord's second form. And I'm pretty happy with most of them.
Mhm.
Um, I need to do the Dragon Lord and his second form, and then get them all scanned and format it. And then honestly, I could just publish it through like Lulu and
Okay.
just do print on demand for people, or
Mhm.
have it up free on my Patreon or whatever. Um, it's there.
Mhm.
There's other projects that I'm working on right now that I'm just more motivated to work on right now.
Understandable.
Mhm.
Now, I want to thank you for being on this podcast tonight. I know it was kind of a last minute, like, hey, what are you doing?
You'd been asking for a while, and I was like, I'm not doing anything tonight. We can do it tonight.
Yeah.
So
So,
I apologize for
oh
throwing that at
no,
you last minute.
no, you're good. I kind of just set up and go from there. I'm like, all right, this is easy.
Mhm.
But thank you though for being on here. Is there anything you want to shout out? I give everybody an opportunity at the end of the episode. Shout out what you're working on. Shout out, streams that you're doing, where you can find you, stuff like that.
Since we brought it up earlier, and since a lot of the discussion was about the whole vegan stuff,
Hmm.
I'm going to shout out Kurzgesagt. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's a wonderful science channel on YouTube, and it's
Okay.
actually what prompted Shannon and I to change our eating habits. And it wasn't a video about vegetarianism, vegan, or even meat. It was a video about the microbiomes that make up our bodies.
Okay.
Um, and here, I'm going to share this to you in case you want to toss it in the information
Yeah,
somewhere.
definitely.
But yeah, it's just a video called How Bacteria Rule Over Your Body. And learning more about microbiomes
Hmm.
is what changed the way we approach food and how we eat. It's not it's not just about putting calories and nutrients into my body anymore. I treat my body instead like it's a garden.
Hmm.
There are certain things I want to grow in my garden, and there's ways to encourage that.
Okay.
So it's a fascinating video. Their entire channel is great. They include links to all the research topics. When they get something wrong, they'll do a video update explaining what they got wrong and where and why.
Hmm.
And they're a very good, well researched, well produced channel. So yeah, I'm gonna shout them
Sounds good.
out. And yeah.
N- Yeah. Do you still stream on Twitch periodically? Yes,
No,
periodically.
not right now. I was actually going to make a joke in the Discord that you're the reason I'm not streaming tonight, because if you hadn't been available, I was going to go
Oh,
back
okay.
to my Dragon Quest III
Yeah.
Dragon Conquest series. So
Okay.
I am feeling it again. It tends to come in waves.
Yeah.
Like earlier this year, I did 1 and 2 and all of the achievements on retro achievements back to back,
Hmm.
and then I've kind of been on hiatus since then. I'm feeling it again. I want to get 3 knocked out before we get Monsters 3
Hmm.
in December. Is that December 4th?
Something like that.
Something like that. I'm really looking forward to Monsters, and I want to
Hmm.
have 3 in the bag and out of the way before we get there. I think I can do it. It's
Oh
only
yeah.
September.
Yeah. You
It's
got
only
plenty of
September.
months.
Three's not long.
Mm-mm. You got plenty of time. So if they wanted to follow you on Twitch, is Saigan, is it Saigan or is it
It's
Saigan Cat? I
I'm
forget.
Saigan Cat on both YouTube
That's
and
what it was.
Twitch. SAIGANCAT on both YouTube and Twitch. I have over a decade's worth of Dragon Quest and other RPG videos on
Hmm.
my YouTube, some fighting games as well. It's
Yeah.
been chaos over there. And then yeah, the Twitch, sometimes I'll just stream whatever comes to me on
Yeah.
Twitch. I think the last stream I did was a it was Morrowind. I did a
Yeah.
Morrowind stream.
Yeah, that was a while ago now.
Yeah.
So, but thank you all for watching this episode. It's fun to actually get to talk to some of my heroes that I watched growing up. So, I mean, growing up, we're
Heroes
about the
heroes a
same age.
strong word. You're being very generous.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm 33, so I'm about kind of a little
Okay.
younger than you, so but not too
I
much.
just turned 40 in
Yep.
July. So
So,
yeah, you're one of them younger millennials.
yeah. Yep. So, but yeah, if you ever have any issues with your RPGs, this is the guy to talk to or watch, him, HC Bailey, like I said earlier. Earthbound's always Chugga Conroy. Chugga Conroy's done perfect runs of Earthbound that blow my mind every time. But yeah, this guy right here, Dragon Quest, any other RPGs you want, check out Saigan. He'll help you out.
Yeah. And I have a Discord full of very knowledgeable Dragon Quest fans.
Yep.
Each of us have at least one game that we're some level of expert in.
Yep. And then there's me. I'm just like, so what's this Dragon Quest game I should
You
get?
contribute. Don't be so hard on yourself. Not everybody has to be an expert.
Right. So, but thank you again, Saigan. And thank you all for watching this episode. Definitely have Saigon on again to talk about something different. Maybe we'll see what options we have. So, thank you
Cool.
all for watching. And thank you,
All right.
Saigan.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Thank you all for watching as well.
Have a great rest of your night.